Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rochelle Scouten. I'm the Development Director at National Bicycle Dealers Association. We really appreciate you being here to hear about our new U.S. Specialty Retail Channel study. We have the company that we worked with to create this report, Human Powered Solutions. We have Jay Townley here from Human Powered Solutions, and he's going to take us through a little overview of the report, what you can expect to see in it, and also how you can use it for your business. And so I am going to go ahead and shift it over to Jay. Thank you so much for doing this with us today, Jay.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Rochelle. For those of you that don't know, this is actually one in a series of studies, although the NBDA has not been able to do the U.S. Specialty Retail Channel study in a couple of years. This is picking up what traditionally the NBDA has done on an annual basis, and hopefully we'll be able to continue now on an annual basis. We had hoped, quite frankly, for more responses, but we'll keep working at it. For a study of this type, it's ideal to get 300 or over 300 solid responses back. We got about half of that this time around, but we're working with it. What we didn't get were large dealers. So what we've got here is the population of specialty bike retailers that would be considered the middle of the market, or the typical bike shop, not the multi-store, not the large shop, but certainly the typical shop, the mom and pop shops, if you will, in the United States market. I'm going to use the index as the, if you will, the agenda for this presentation. And I'm going to do that so that we stay in line with the whole report. Now, this is almost 50 pages. It's 49 pages total. I'm going to touch on, in the time available for this webinar, about a third of the slides or charts, and then I'll be available for question and answer. I can't do the whole presentation of all of the content here. I will discuss what the lessons are you can draw from this, and there are many, and this is valuable data. But we're going to touch on enough, I hope, to make you interested. These are things that factoids that I find interesting out of the report. Hope you do as well, and hope they begin to spark your interest in either receiving or purchasing this report. Now, the 4 chapters covered here are bicycle retail as an overview, e-bikes as a specialty category, which I found some really interesting and surprising facts here. Marketing and e-commerce, an extremely important piece of what's done with especially bicycle retail today with bike shops, what you're doing to market your products and where e-commerce and websites fit. And then the last chapter, number 4, is on operational and support systems. Now, if there's a pause here, it's because for every one of the webinars that I've done, we've had a little bit of a pause in gaining control to move forward with the slides. And now it works. So the key findings from the 2023 Bicycle Retailer Survey from this survey include revenue trends, economic impact, and forecasting. And you can use the data for all of these things in your planning. Top-level inventory overview, which I will touch on in this report, in this overview as well. I think this is extremely important. E-bike strategies. You can define from this report UPC utilization, point of sale usage, and then marketing and promotional tactics as they are employed by dealers. This 2023 edition of the NBDA Specialty Bicycle Retail Study presents an in-depth profile for your use of the retail marketplace in the United States, and it covers 2021 and 2022, the COVID. And it also includes projections from retailers about their views of the market going through 2023, this year. Now, many key aspects of bicycle retailers are covered in depth here. As I said, in looking at the chapters or the agenda, this includes location, size of store, the product category mix, brands carried, marketing, technology, and the challenges in your business. Now, this is extremely important and I think interesting. NBDA members, you have to log in to get the member pricing. Non-members can purchase this report for $199. Members of the NBDA may buy at the discounted price of $75. And the NBDA is providing the report to its retail members, to bike shop members. So in other words, if you're an associate member of the NBDA, like Human Powered Solutions is, we can purchase the report for $75. If you're an NBDA store member, specialty bike retail store member, it's free. All you have to do is contact the NBDA, go to the website, www.nbda.com. And we'll talk about that more as we get into the Q&A. Now, chapter 1, bicycle retail overview. And this is an overview of especially bike retail side of the business. Remember, we're focusing here on the middle bike shops, not the big multi-stores, not the top 10, but the mom and pop shops for the most part, the bulk of the NBDA membership. And the first slide I picked is, given the current economic conditions, what is your revenue forecast for 2023? Not surprisingly, the respondents, 51% of them, said down. And quite frankly, or unfortunately, we're also getting reports through the NBDA that indicate that this actually has increased some. So that leaves 25% of you, of the respondents, had said that they felt that the revenue forecasts would be up, and then about 23% that said revenue should be about the same. The key, of course, is that just over half, 51%, we're projecting that revenue will be down. Now, in this same block, there's also a projection for, now this is revenue, remember, gross revenue. There's a projection for net pre-tax income or for profit. So it gives you a chance to look at all aspects of what is anticipated based on experience and what's occurring in the market for 2023. So essentially a down market, which is no surprise. And this information and data that's provided in this report should also give you a leg up on doing your marketing planning to learn to deal with and prepare for that. Now, we asked which of the following factors are playing a significant role in your business over the last 3 quarters from July of 2022 to the present, which would be August 1st of 2023. So the highest percentage, weather at 15%, and then we move up. Regional economy has played a role in about 11% of you. Product availability, which is not surprising, another 11%. Lower consumer visits, 10%. I would have thought that would be higher, but still a factor. E-bikes, and this doesn't go to good, bad, or indifferent. It's just simply played a significant role. E-bikes have played a significant role in about 10% of the bike shops that responded relative to being a factor as it affected the business. Now, again, also interestingly, about 44% of the respondents, the majority, said other entries or other factors other than weather, regional economy, product availability, lower consumer visits, or e-bikes. And so you can dig into that and see what those were. Weather sticks out here at 15% of the respondents saying this was the factor. Weather is going to play more of a role. Weather, as you see in national news, has through this summer become a very important issue relative to high heat, the heat domes. We've had at any point in time this summer from 88 million to 100 million Americans that have been in heat advisory areas. And we have to, as folks in the bicycle business providing product, but also rider information, have to work with the League of American Bicyclists in getting information to consumers as to when they can ride and when there are weather events they're going to have to avoid. We do cover that in more detail in our newsletter, and we'll cover more with the NBDA in our podcast coming up to cover the most recent edition of the Human Powered Solutions newsletter, the Micromobility Report. Now, how many brands of regular or non-electric bicycles do you carry? And this is pretty much indicative or in line with what we've seen in past years. Look at that high spike that you see in the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth column there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is not uncommon, well over 5% headed toward 10%. This is fairly typical of the non-electric side, and we'll compare it to what dealers told us they're carrying a number of electric bicycle brands, which also surprised me. But this is also important in the sense that this is a tool that is available to dealers to work on, adjust, and take into account how they can control pricing with some product because of the number of brands carried and what they can do to enhance their revenue in times when they're squeezed for revenue overall from the brands that they carry. Do you currently belong to any of the following industry associations? Now, I find this interesting in the sense, and probably I shouldn't have been surprised, that the majority, 31% of the respondents, are members of the National Bicycle Dealers Association. Number two, People for Bikes at 15% as the industry trade association. The League of American Bicyclists at under 20% at about 12%. This is what surprised me in the sense that uh, there's got to be more representation in the league. And most recently, the NBDA, League of American Bicyclists, formed a cooperative group, and they joined together so that now every member of the NBDA is also a member of the League of American Bicyclists. And so therefore, there can be closer collaboration between the specialty independent dealers in each community, you in your communities, with the league club or the LAB club organization or the LAB state organization, where you can be more directly involved in what's occurring in the rider community and relative to use laws, and also what the LAB can do to help dealers from the standpoint, bike shops, from the standpoint of better riding environments in their local communities. So this takes us to chapter 2, e-bikes, one of the most interesting areas and potential growth areas in the bicycle business. And this first slide or first data point that I chose is one that surprised the dickens out of me. Do you sell electric bikes? Response, 92% of you out there said yes, with only 8% saying no. Quite frankly, this surprised me. I did not think it would be this high. It shows the omnipresence of e-bikes in the market. It makes it abundantly clear that this is the category, and we think the category of the future from the standpoint of a revenue source for dealers, but also a category for growth in the consumer community. And I would only add that there will be some questions here toward the end of this grouping where we are vitally concerned about the issues associated with lithium-ion batteries and lithium-ion battery fires. What can be done to mitigate that in the market? What can be done to educate dealers? What can be done to educate consumers? And what can be done to make sure that this most important category of product that is tapped for growth in the American marketplace can be one that is going to be looked upon as a safe category for use and a category for growth for specialty bicycle retailers. So we're all going to have to make sure we're working on that in unison, and in particular, educating both each other, especially bike retailers, and more importantly, in the process, the consuming public. Now, I mentioned brands. How many brands of electric bikes do you carry? Look at the highest representation is 3 brands. Again, this surprised me. Although 4, 5, 6 at 10% and above also were a bit of a surprise. I think this is necessary. I'm glad to see it. I would like to see it grow to the point that we saw with the regular pedal bicycles, in that dealers carry the brands they need to carry to make sure that they are yielding the gross margin of profit that they need to run their businesses. Harley Phillips, former president of the NBDA, former member of the NBDA, now a retired specialty bike retailer in Hutchinson, Kansas. The Phillips rule, as I call it, was something that Harley preached for decades. And that is simple: that no bike shop should sell anything in their store below their cost of doing business. Now, this begs two issues. One, dealers need to know their cost of doing business. And it also means that you have to very carefully look at the pricing issue, because Harley knows full well, and his rule knew full well, that there are certain times when you're going to have to violate it, because there's product you're going to have to sell below your cost of doing business just to move it out. Get rid of it, one way or the other. But the operating rule that we live by, that we stick to, is that you should never sell anything in your specialty bike retail store below your cost of doing business. So make sure you know what your cost of doing business is, and then also review your pricing, your retail pricing, on a regular, when I mean regular in these times, every couple of weeks, so that you're doing everything to optimize and make sure that you're not selling below your cost of doing business. Also, look carefully at the number of brands you carry to make sure that you're carrying those brands where you have more control of the pricing, which, by the way, we're going to talk more about in our newsletter. But if you go back and look at the study of economics, this is the invisible hand. Pricing is the difference between, or what is going to be the retailer's interface between supply and demand. Demand is the consumer. Supply is the business. It's the supply chain. What falls in between that and brings you harmony to that, or balance, is the way your product is priced and what the consumer sees relative to that pricing. And in this day and age, as we'll see as we move forward here, how you also show that invisible hand, or the pricing of your products, on your website. And hopefully that is a commerce-enabled website where you can be proactive in marketing your products. Now, moving along here, we asked, if you sell e-bikes, do you request copies of safety certificates or certificates to UL, Underwriters Lab, e-bike standards, in this case UL 2849, from your e-bike suppliers? Do you ask for safety certificates or certificates, UL certificates of compliance, to third-party testing for the e-bikes that you carry in your store? Take a look at this. 62% of you said no to this question. That is way, way too high in these times. Every specialty bicycle retailer should be asking every supplier of an e-bike for a certificate of compliance to UL 2849. I'll go through the rest of this chart and then explain why UL 2849 is so important, and why a certificate of compliance with that standard is so important. 33% of the respondents said yes. 33% of the specialty bicycle retailers who responded to this question said, yep, they ask for safety certificates or certificates of compliance with UL 2849. Significantly, 5% said that they have requested the certificates, but no response has been forthcoming from the supplier. In other words, the suppliers didn't respond. Now, this becomes very important, starting with the city of New York, where a city ordinance has been passed that will require that all bicycles sold in the city, I'm sorry, let me back up. All e-bikes, electric bicycles sold in the city of New York, will require a UL 2849 certificate of compliance to be legally sold going forward from September of this year forward. There was a hearing in Washington, D.C. on July 27th, last week. A full day hearing about lithium ion batteries and lithium ion battery fires. The recording or the video from that is now available, and we'll soon get it posted on both the NBDA site, on the Human Powered Solutions site, and it'll be made readily available to dealers, so every bike shop in the United States can look through that testimony, which was a full day hearing from 10 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, wherein essentially the whole of the industry and the experts that testified before the commission advised the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, as the chairman summarized in the wrap up to that session, that the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission should be expeditious in putting forward and placing a mandatory update of the bicycle safety standard, plus inclusive of a mandated portion of that standard to apply to e-bikes, and that should be harmonized as much as possible with the European standards, and that it include the UL standard ISO 4210-10 and UL 2849, or those portions of UL 2849, which is the standard that is applicable to electrical propulsion systems for bicycles that utilize lithium-ion batteries. It should, any mandatory federal standard going forward and done as quickly as possible should incorporate as much of that as is required to make sure that it is compatible with ISO 4210. Now, I've thrown a lot of numbers around, and they're certainly not part of this survey, but they're part of this question that dealers, especially bike retailers, need to request copies of safety certifications, because this is going to be the requirement of the future for the city of New York. There's legislation pending to make it the state requirement for the city of New York. There's federal legislation that has been put in the hopper by both the two senators from New York, one of which is the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Schumer, and by assemblyman, or by congressman, I should say, not assemblyman, by Congressman Richie Torres from New York City, that would also require 2849 under federal law as a mandatory standard. So this is coming, and dealers need to know which of their suppliers are providing certificates of compliance at this point, and every dealer needs to ask every supplier and keep asking them until they get a solid answer. From the standpoint of the 5% that requested and got no response from suppliers, they have to keep pounding on those suppliers to make sure that they comply. And I think overall there has to be a serious question as to whether especially bike retailers continue to do business with suppliers that will not respond to questions like this. Now, moving on, we asked especially bike retailers, do you request copies of liability and business insurance policies in which your store is identified as a covered entity from your regular bicycle and e-bike suppliers? In other words, in addition to asking for certificates of compliance, do bike shops ask for current up-to-date copies of liability and business insurance from suppliers? And specifically, a copy of a insurance policy where the store is identified as a covered entity by that supplier. Again, a high percentage, 73% of you out there said no, you don't. This is extremely important. You should. Only 17% said yes. Good, you're doing the right thing. Keep it up. And then significantly, 10% of the dealers responding said that they have requested copies of liability and business insurance policies, but no response from the supplier. And here again, suppliers, if you're listening, if you're associate members of the NBDA, you have to make sure that you start responding to dealers and being sensitive to dealers' requests for these certificates of insurance. And we're advising NBDA, NBDA is advising dealers, that dealers continue to ask for certificates of insurance to make absolutely sure that their suppliers are providing adequate insurance and particular liability insurance relative to both electric bicycles and the lithium-ion batteries used in the propulsion systems. So this takes us to chapter 3, marketing and e-commerce. And this, again, is one area that I am particularly interested in, but think that dealers will find very instructive from the standpoint of some of the responses here. And this is, again, a case where buying the study, or if you're an NBDA retail member, you can get this study for free. Just ask for it from the NBDA. You'll get a wealth of information relative to the marketing that's being employed by other dealers and exactly what that is doing for the business of those dealers, and in particular, what dealers are doing relative to their e-commerce presence or acting on our advice, again, the NBDA and Human Powered Solutions, that bike shops move as quickly as possible to make sure that their websites are enabled, e-commerce enabled, and that they can present a face to the consuming public where the consuming public can interface with them and buy products from them 24/7. So we asked, what has been your most successful marketing program to date? Well, not surprisingly, social media. Now, social media doesn't require the next thing down, which is a website. And we strongly advise that every specialty bicycle retailer have a commerce-enabled website, a website that allows consumers to buy merchandise, not only shop, but buy merchandise from that dealer 24/7. It becomes important because we're seeing another shift in consumer buying. And essentially what occurred after during the COVID, more and more consumers were buying online because they could buy from the comfort and safety of their homes. And as COVID waned and as the restrictions were lifted and more consumers got out and about to shop, there seemed to be a movement more toward the reality of shopping, which is true. And where the consumer expense went, or consumers' footfalls went, is not only was there an increase in visits to retail stores, but also a much more prevalent and larger increase in consumers visiting restaurants. And so, in other words, buying services, going to restaurants, going to music events, going to movie theaters. That appears to be also the significant shift that's occurring now in the late summer, where consumers are moving more away from retail, more to services, but with a caveat that a higher percentage of consumers are doing their shopping online before they go to a retail store to buy. So having a website becomes extremely important from the standpoint of how a retailer will be available to reach consumers and be able to affect consumers. And it's not just selling merchandise online, which you can either ship to a consumer or a consumer can pick up, or can curbside for pickup, but it's the whole ability of a consumer to look at your specialty bike retail store as being convenient for them, as being set up to be the source for them of bicycle products and e-bike products, and you're being able to respond to their needs anytime, 24/7, that consumer wants to shop. Now, what is the primary marketing strategy for your website? So in other words, if you have a website, what's the reason you've got the website up? The majority, 47% of retailers responding, said market and promote your business. Okay. Number two, 26% said communicate with your customers and prospects. Also, yes, good. Only 19% in this drill down said sell merchandise to consumers or customers. Sell merchandise to customers. And only 5% said schedule service work. So this we feel is an indicator that dealers are not moving as expeditiously as they should with their website suppliers to commerce enable a website to sell merchandise to customers. And we ask that more dealers talk to the NBDA about this. Make sure that you're also talking to other retailers, especially bike retailers, about this. Taking a look at the investment, what you're going to afford right now, and how you can work that in is look at your website as another salesperson or another arm of the sales force. The website needs to be as up to date, as knowledgeable, as current as every one of your salespeople. So every morning, if you do a shape up, or every afternoon, if you do a shape up with staff, and you talk to your staff about what needs to be moved today, what product you need to make sure you're getting better inventory turn on, what product has got the best margins for you, what are the best products for consumers. You need to include your webmaster and your website in that review. Your commerce enabled website is an arm, a branch, is part and parcel of your sales force. And you should look at it that way because it's a revenue source. And so it needs to be up to date. It needs to be current. It needs to be as smart as every one of your salespeople. And it needs to be moved up on this list so that the majority of you are saying that your marketing strategy for your website is to sell more merchandise to consumers. Now, do you engage in some form of e-commerce selling, such as selling merchandise on your website? Now, this is interesting. It's not a trick question. 58% of you said, yeah, we do. And 42% said no. This is slightly different than the previous slide. We think that part of the reason is this is a pretty general question. In other words, such as selling merchandise on your website, yeah, probably you're selling t-shirts. Some of you are selling t-shirts, hats, easy items, jerseys, and you're not focusing on the harder task of putting your bicycle, e-bike products, your parts and accessories, because that takes time, it takes effort, on your website, and make sure that's current, up to date. You take stuff down that's out of stock. You take stuff, you put stuff on that you want to sell. You make sure you're pricing properly. You keep all the numbers up to date. Um, so this we think, yeah, okay. So 58% of you said, yeah, we do engage in some form of e-commerce. We'd like to see actually that number become larger. And also, from our standpoint, we need to be more specific in the way we ask these questions. But I thought you would like to see this as an example of the kind of detail and the drill down we're doing, and also so a little bit of the disparity, room for interpretation that we got in the responses. Now, we asked a question here, and the if yes is a question that says, if you got a website, do you get website data? Do you go to Google and look at all of the data that you get on who visits the site, how many people visit your site, what pages they go to, etc. So is your website traffic up or down year to date 2023 compared to the same period in 2022? So if you got a website, is your web traffic up based on your looking at the metrics? So look at the big blue spike there. Up slightly, 46%. Good, good. The dealers with websites that are looking at their metrics saw a slight increase. That's indicative of those, what we see in the consumer trends for those dealers with websites, particularly those with commerce enabled websites. They've got more consumers looking at them. This is good. This is the reason for those of you that don't have a commerce enabled website or don't have an active website, and we would call them passive websites that, yeah, you want to promote your business, but you're not really trying to sell product. This is really a good incentive and good data for you to latch on to do something with your website to make it more proactive. Because of the dealers out there, your peers that have an active website, that have it up to date, that are looking at their web traffic, they've seen a slight increase. Now, about 29% saw their website traffic down slightly, while 13% saw it up substantially. And then about 12%, going off to the left here, saw it down substantially. We think the good news is in the middle two columns, in that only 29% saw a decline, while 46% saw it going up. And then to the far right, 13% saw it up substantially. I think if more of you get out there and work with the associate vendors to the NVDA, many of whom can help you design and develop and put together a really good commerce-enabled website, you'll be able to see an increase in business from that marketing initiative. And again, treat your website like a member of your sales staff. You expect it to provide revenue, profitability, and an increase in profitability to pay for the expense you're putting into it. So this is the last chapter, chapter 4, operational and support systems. And here again, it's making sure that you're taking a look at how your operational and support systems compare to what the national response is that we're getting from the bulk of dealers, the mom and pop shops that responded to this survey. Do you feel you're utilizing the full capacity of your point of sale software system? I really like this question. We used it for years and years and years. Do you feel you're utilizing the full capability of your POS software system? Because what occurs is software systems, as they are installed, tend to have more capability than dealers really take the time to initialize, to use. So you're being honest here. 68% of you said no. You don't feel that you're utilizing the full capacity of your point of sale software system. Number one, you're paying full price. You're paying for it. Number two, your vendor, your supplier will be more than happy to help you figure out how you can better utilize what you're already paying for. So what we think this shows very clearly is that, again, you're being honest. 68% of the respondents said, we're just not utilizing the full capacity of that POS system to help our business and help us make more money. Now, 32% of you said yes, good. The other 68% need to contact their supplier of POS services, of POS software, of a POS system, and go through and find out, because they'll be happy to do it, what you're not taking full advantage of. Maybe a little painful, may require a learning curve. It may require you to learn some new things. It may require some staff to learn some new things. But if you do it properly, it can be very productive and profitable for your business. Now, we asked a question, are you using your point of sale system to connect and order from your suppliers? Point of sale systems, the bulk of them, have a purchasing component to them or module. Some of them are part and parcel of what you install at the initiation. Some of them are add-ons, but it's low cost. So in other words, you can use your POS system to purchase, to get away from the bullwhip effect, to move back to a just-in-time system and discipline, and to make sure that you're ordering according to what you're selling, not what you think you want to sell, or you think you're selling, or you think you should have an inventory, because these times do not support that. So are you using your point of sale system to connect and order from suppliers? 62% of you said no. This is an area of huge improvement. Now, 31% said yes, but only from integrated suppliers only. What this means is that some point of sale systems only allow ordering from suppliers that are integrated in that system. One of the systems on the market is integrated with only one prime supplier and their component brands. 6% responded, yes, we're ordering from all suppliers. in our estimation, way too low. This is where there's room for great improvement. And then 1% said unqualified yes. So a total of 7% of you are using the full capability to purchase from all vendors, using the data collected from and in your POS system. 31% are only using integrated suppliers only. You're tied to a POS system that lets you do that only. I would first check and see if the supplier, the POS supplier would allow you to expand, or if there's another system you can employ, so that we've got a larger group of dealers that are using the capability and the data stored in a POS system in an effective way to properly order and to run a JIT, a just-in-time purchasing system. And we can discuss that more if you want to do it offline. I love this chart. I simply love this. What is your estimated or actual point of sale system inventory accuracy by category? In other words, all the POS systems that are out there have the ability, if you will maintain it, to give you current inventory, which is vitally important to control and to use relative to purchasing. Your inventory needs to be accurate. However, it requires that you and your staff put information in that system to make sure that the inventory will be accurate. So, to the left, look at the pink lines. And look above that, and I'll use my cursor. Here's 100%. Right across here. Okay? 100%. Bicycles, well over 100%. Some of you probably answered twice. For bicycles, your POS system is giving you accurate inventory because you've got the right information in it. You're keeping it accurate. This is common. This goes back 20 years. E-bikes, good to see this, even better. You're getting great and accurate point of sale system inventory accuracy because you're putting in the information you need to input. Is primarily sales. And at the beginning, you received it and you sold it for e-bikes. Now, let's look at accessories. 60%. Oh, sorry, 60%. Clothes, a little better, just under 80% accuracy. Service parts. Here's where it really falls apart. Almost driving down to 40, but the point I'm making here is that these three categories not being kept up to date, not being made accurate, will kill you. This will throw your inventory accuracy totally off. The service parts, by the way, has been traditionally low because of the problem of getting service shop employees to input accurate information concerning the service parts that they're drawing from inventory and using on service jobs. You charge them properly because they're on a service ticket. You're getting paid for them, so you're satisfied. However, you're not keeping an accurate inventory record, so you're ordering improperly, you're not ordering accurately, and you're not keeping an accurate record so that in the future, you'll know exactly what the ebb and the flow is of accessories inventory, clothing and shoes inventory, and parts inventory. So I think this is an invaluable piece of information. Obviously, it lets an old guy like me rag on this, but it's an important issue that I'm sure is discussed in the P2 groups in detail, because this is a make or break piece of controlling the business and accurately reordering merchandise. And here's the last grouping, and I put two of them up here just to give you an idea of the data that's in the survey. If you're currently using a point of sale system, what is your degree of satisfaction with the system's contribution to your business? 42% said satisfied, 24% said completely satisfied. You could add that up. So 65%, 63% are between completely satisfied and satisfied. I submit, by the way, that you should not be, based on the previous slides. So you've only got 11% that are not at all satisfied, and 24% that are somewhat satisfied, 35%. The level of satisfaction is certainly with the receipts and the tickets that are printed relative to sales, the detailed data that's being collected relative to, and that's another piece of what is in here that I didn't put up for today, but you'll find in the findings. And that is, uh, if you're doing direct marketing, if you're going to be doing any type of social media, you're collecting data about consumers. You've got a consumer database, and that is can be a good consumer database or just a database, but it's you are collecting that data, which is good news. So some of you, based on that, I think are completely satisfied or satisfied. And the reality is you need to add to that not just the consumer data you're collecting. Be proud of yourself. You got a good consumer list, but you also should have a good, accurate inventory for all the SKUs that are in your store. And I would like to see that as one of the indicators moving forward here. And then if you're not now using a POS system or point of sale system, do you plan to evaluate and purchase a system in the future? Now, I understand the no's here. That's 67% of those that don't have a POS are saying, nope, I'm not looking at a POS system in the future. There are some businesses, and I know some dealers that I talk to on a regular basis that I like a lot, that I consider to be friends, that are one person operations in market areas where they have crafted and developed that marketing plan and that store operation so that they don't need point of sale. They literally don't. They've got control of the inventory. They keep all of the records they need to keep. They're running the store as they need to run it. But they unfortunately are the exception. In today's fast-paced market, in today's shifting consumer demand market, in a market that'll run from no COVID to a COVID and a drop in sales, to people finding how they can buy, to dealers getting back into the business, to seeing a sales surge come their way and then see that surge ebb and the consumer change, all of this within 36 months. You need to have a good point of sale system, whether it's up in the cloud today or not. So the 33% that don't have a system today that are looking seriously at a system, I applaud you. The NVDA can certainly help you, but it's too small a grouping. We need to increase the number of people, dealers, especially bike retailers, that don't have a point of sale system today. There needs to be more of you looking at particularly the new cloud-based systems. In other words, you don't have to have the point of sale software resident on your computer. You do have to have good connectivity. So you need to be in a metro market where you've got good up and down capability or load capability for your POS to be able to interface with your computer. But there are cloud-based systems that are good. They'll give you a solid POS, and they compete effectively with the systems where you've got to install software on your computer or on your workstations. So I have, in the time available, certainly pounded away on some of the issues relative to business planning that go with what I've just covered, which is the 2023 National Bicycle Dealer Survey and its 4 chapters. So that represents what we've reviewed in the time we've had available. Remembering the 2023 edition of the NBDA Specialty Bicycle Retail Study, that members, you're going to have to log in to www.nbda.com to get member pricing, that non-members may purchase the report for $199. Members of the NBDA may buy at the discounted price of $75. And for those of you that are NBDA retail members, it is free. All you have to do is register and ask for it. So that takes us to Q&A. And Rochelle, we have some questions, or you have some questions you'd like to ask. But in any case, we're at that point in the discussion where we can open this up to questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jay. We are fortunate to have some great people here watching the webinar with us. Ryan Atkinson from Smart Etailing has been in the chat the
Oh,
whole time
hi, hi,
answering
Ryan.
questions about websites. So thank you so much, Ryan, for doing that. We really appreciate you. We also have Neil Wexler, our P2 business consultant, in the chat answering questions. So I'm going to go to ones that haven't been answered just yet. There's only a couple here. So if you have questions, please put them in. The question was back from toward the beginning of the presentation, Jay, when you were talking about inventory and how many brands you should or people do carry. And you had mentioned that you should only carry brands that you can get your cost of business on and good margin on it. So the question was, how would you recommend that you calculate that cost of doing business on a per item basis?
Well, I would go to the NBDA cost doing business study where it's calculated. So you could look at all the line items. Essentially, a cost of doing business is calculated by if there's a percentage that you can apply to this, that is everything that goes into what it costs you for the occupancy, the staff, the cost of inventory, and the cost of goods, that comes up with a percentage that is your cost of doing business, that you then in turn have to make sure that you're not selling any of your merchandise below. But that percentage is shown in the NBDA cost of doing business study. The P2 groups look at this on a regular basis through their unified accounting systems. And if you're looking for the exact amount, I don't have the percentage readily in mind from this year's cost of doing business study. What typically it's been over the years is somewhere north of 34% cost of doing business, then 35, 36. But within that range of cost of doing business by store size shown in the cost of doing business report, you can match up your revenue size as a retailer, which are all shown in the cost of doing business report, or ranges are shown, and then look at your cost of doing business and say, okay, that's my percentage, and I shouldn't be selling below that. What we've found over the years is that the gross margin on, say, new bicycles has ebbed and flowed. Right now, it's from what I've seen at the lowest it's been in decades. And we've had to make sure we're pointing out to bike shops their cost of doing business relative to the gross revenue, the sale price of a new bicycle. What unfortunately was the mantra before the COVID, before 2019, is that specialty bike retailers, bike shops, haven't been selling new bicycles for a net pre-tax profit in probably up to that point 10 years. E-bikes changed that because e-bikes, when they became a big category for a period of time, were much higher from the standpoint of gross revenue. But right now, we've dropped back to a point where you really need to look at it carefully, because everything I'm seeing and hearing and all the feedback I get from the NBDA, and again, you've got the NBDA P2 consultant on the call who can confirm or deny this, but from what I've been hearing, the gross margin of profit on bicycles and e-bikes is at a point now where it's dropping below the cost of doing business on a typical basis.
Thank you, Jay. We have one more question that came in. In this retail channel study, there was a question that asked a series of issues that retailers may be facing, and it asked them to rank those issues if they are a problem for them currently. One of the ones that this retailer picked out is product quality, and they want to know what product quality issues might they be facing.
Well, that's a general question. We need to get a cross section of retailers to get a particularly service shop people to get a better response to that. But from what I have been told and what I'm hearing is some of this is e-bike related. Now, again, an e-bike has characteristics from an assembly and service standpoint that are different from what's referred to in the trade as an acoustic bike or a regular pedal bike. One of them is weight, and the fact that you've got to be much more careful in getting that bike up on a service stand in order to do service work with it. The other is familiarity with the systems. What I'm hearing is that there's more of that product coming into stores for assembly as new product that has problems with it that dealers have to, and their mechanics, particularly the setup people, have to spend more time working on and repairing uh, before they're put on the sales floor to sell as new product. And during the COVID, there were many substitutions, almost free substitutions in order to get product in the market. So the other thing that's cropped up, because many of those bikes, by the way, have carried over in inventory and warehousing, and they're still being supplied to dealers today as we speak to fulfill orders. Some of them have substitute components. Some of those components are not quite as compatible as the original OEM specification, so they require more work, more fine tuning, more adjustment. And unfortunately, on some bikes, there are some substitutions that simply just are not working out well. And so dealers are having to, and their service people are having to catch that and deal with it. So overall, I think that, yeah, one of the things that's occurred here is a slight sagging of overall quality of product in the box opened up by dealers being presented for assembly.
Excellent. We do have one more question here, and then I'll let you go, Jay. The question is, does the NBDA have any information on reporting or demographics of bike shop customers?
Good question.
I know our consumer research study that we did last year has information on that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Absolutely correct. That the previous study does have demographic information by category. So that would be the place I would point dealers to right up front. Dealers and suppliers, members of the NBDA. Go to the NBDA consumer research study from last year. And that would be the biggest block of information.
Absolutely. Yeah, he asked what types of bikes they purchase, what income levels. Yeah, we have all that information in that report.
You do. So that member can get if it's a dealer, can get the dealer price. If it's an associate member, I believe there's also special pricing. But in any case, that is a very thorough study and covers major categories. So that would be the place that I would go.
Excellent. We are at the top of the hour here, so if anybody has any more questions, please email them to us and we will make sure to answer those over email. Thank you for everyone that showed up and has engaged with us. Thank you, Jay, for the great information.
My pleasure. Happy to do it. Anybody wants to reach me, check with Rochelle. She knows how to contact me, and I'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Thank you again, everyone. Have a great day.